Metroid. It's one of Nintendo's most iconic franchises, and it all started back on the original Nintendo Entertainment System back in the 1980s. As the player blasts through aliens and explores the world they're dropped into, they're left with the feeling of awe. Most players want this feeling to last as long as possible and explore every last inch of every room in the game. But some people play Metroid a little bit differently. So, the history of the NES Metroid world record can be traced back to 2004. The player was a guy I've talked about a lot, and a guy who should probably be known as one of the greatest video game players of all time, Scott Kessler, and the time of the run was 22 minutes and 19 seconds. For those unfamiliar with Metroid, the eventual goal is to beat Mother Brain. Before you can do that, of course, there's so much more that most players have to do. Get items that let you deal more damage, pick up more health, other attributes, and beat two mini-bosses, Kraid and Ridley, that allow you to get to Mother Brain in the first place. So, Kessler started off his run by stocking up on missiles and getting other items and health. He traveled through Brinstar to pick up his first 5 missiles, an E-Tank to boost his health to 199, bombs, the Ice Beam, and another E-Tank. In all, he spent around 8 minutes and 45 seconds in Brinstar before heading down the elevator into Kraid's lair to get ready to fight Kraid. Once he was in Kraid's lair, he navigated to the room before Kraid's room and began to farm for missiles. See, when you kill an enemy in Metroid, it can have the chance of dropping a random item, and one of those items it can drop is a missile. Kessler needed 5 missiles to break open the red door to get to the Kraid fight, so he spent about a half minute shooting Giga to get the 5 missiles he needed to randomly drop. Then, it was on to the Kraid fight. Kessler's strategy here was to simply roll into a ball and lay bombs everywhere, hoping that they would explode on Kraid and damage him. This strategy was slow, but safe and effective. The fight itself took about a minute, and then he picked up a hidden E-Tank and got out. Kessler then had to climb out of Kraid's lair, in a section that would be known as the Climb. His method was to simply shoot the blocks above him, then jump and let the blocks that respawned below him push him farther up. Once again, this was pretty slow, and it took him about 2.5 minutes to get back up to the elevator. He then went into the infamous statue room. This room is more or less the gateway between the rest of the game and Mother Brain. Normally, once you've defeated both Kraid and Ridley, you shoot both of their statues in this room and a bridge appears, allowing you to travel across and enter Tourian to fight Mother Brain. The developers intended for you to have to defeat both bosses before making it across. If you try to go down into the lava pit, there's no way of making it through the 1 tile wide opening on the left. Thankfully, there's a way around having to defeat both Kraid and Ridley. Bridge skip. This trick is one of the oldest I've ever documented in this series. There's reference to it from a Nintendo Fun Club magazine from 1987. If you lure a Rio into the statue room, you can freeze him with your Ice Beam in just the right position. Then you roll into a ball, use a bomb to propel Samus up, and roll through the small opening. So, Kessler could get to Tourian without needing to fight Ridley. He still fought Kraid, however, to get the 75 missiles you receive for killing him. These would come in handy later. After getting through the statue room, Kessler took the elevator down into Tourian. He farmed a bunch of the Metroids for more health and missiles, and then very carefully navigated through the Mother Brain room. His playstyle here was pretty safe, traveling under the platforms and freezing any rings that came near him. He used the missiles he gained from the Kraid fight and from farming to blast through the 8 pillars, before finally reaching Mother Brain and firing the 33 missiles necessary to defeat her. Mother Brain was dead, but anyone who's played Metroid knows there's one final part left: the escape. You've got to jump up from tiny platform to tiny platform to escape from the planet and beat the game. It may not seem too hard, but imagine trying to do this as quickly as you can with the knowledge that you're on world record pace. Mistakes usually aren't punished too heavily here, and you can often just land on the platform below if you slip up. But if it's coming down to the wire, and you can't afford to waste any seconds, then you've got to be perfect. You can't let your run go to waste at the last second. One slip up, and your run is over. Thankfully for Scott Kessler, he didn't really have to worry about that. This was the first recorded run that we're aware of from anybody, so all he had to do was climb up and finish the game. And he did, with a total time of 22 minutes and 19 seconds. This run would end up standing for about a year and a half, but a guy named Blake Pifo, better known by his screen name Spider Waffle, saw room for improvement, and he had a few tricks up his sleeve to help him get there. Scott Kessler's run was good for the time, but many of his techniques for moving around the stages and farming missiles became outdated. To help with his movement, Spider Waffle practiced the game on an emulator, likely using save states to help him do sections over and over again to get better at them. As well as gaining quicker, more precise movements in many of the rooms in Brinstar, he developed a new method for farming missiles after getting bombs. Instead of shooting each enemy individually, he grouped multiple enemies and used bombs on them. Thanks to early time saves like these, on August 27, 2005, Spider Waffle got on a run that went into Kraid's lair at 7 minutes and 53 seconds, 52 full seconds ahead of Scott Kessler. He used a more effective strategy in the Kraid fight that involved freezing a needle to prevent getting knocked back, and then spammed Kraid with shots to the body. This fight alone saved about half a minute over Kessler's fight, and Spider Waffle saved close to a minute on the climb out of Kraid's lair as well. Instead of slowly waiting for each block to respawn to move up a block at a time, Spider Waffle moved up by shooting blocks above him to land, then clearing space to jump even higher. Once he made it back up to Torian, Spider Waffle was nearly 3 minutes ahead of Scott Kessler's run. But he wasn't done saving time yet. When he needed to farm for missiles in Torian, he did so beautifully, grouping Metroids together and getting good luck with receiving a lot of missiles. From there, he defeated Mother Brain, made his way up to the escape, and finished his speedrun, 3 minutes and 37 seconds ahead of Scott Kessler. Spider Waffle finished the game in 18 minutes and 42 seconds on August 27, 2005. Now the progression starts to get a little bit strange. A couple months after Spider Waffle's run, a guy named Chris Knight beat it and submitted it to Twin Galaxies. His final time was 17 minutes and 22 seconds. Nowadays, the footage of this run no longer exists, because back in the day, Twin Galaxies only required the referees to see video of the run. After they saw it, who knows what happened to the footage. So we can't see this run today, but according to their website, his run was verified on October 30th, 2005. And also, his run apparently stood unbeaten for 7 years. It's really rare to see speedruns stand for incredibly long periods of time. Even really optimized runs like Super Mario Bros. Have their records broken with some regularity. That run was lowered from 5 minutes and 6 seconds to 4 minutes and 58 seconds from the same period of time.
I just feel like whoa.
But nobody is able to beat Chris Knight's run. The main reason for that was because, for a period of time, Metroid speedrunners tended to focus their efforts on all bosses speedruns, where you had to defeat both Kraid and Ridley, and 100% speedruns, where you had to collect every item in the game. When you're playing any percent, where you only defeat Kraid, there's points where you need missiles to drop, to open doors, defeat bosses, whatever the reason may be. If you don't get missiles quickly from your farming, you're basically screwed. Knight apparently did beat his own run a few times in mid-2012, but he didn't show anybody the recordings and he didn't submit his times anywhere, so nobody really knew about it. In everyone's eyes, the world record was his 17:22. But then, in late 2012, somebody was finally up to the task. JProfit22. He started his timing a little bit later than Chris Knight did, about 7 seconds. So going by his timing, the time to beat was 17 minutes and 15 seconds. Going into the escape, it was going to be close.
Easy's back. Yes it is. What? Get the fuck out of here. Alright. Ah! God damn it! My fucking rhythm is way off here. It's because I don't fucking get to this part nearly enough. New lap record. 17:15:07. Did I just beat Homeboy?
Remember how I said the escape could be potentially dangerous? Well, there you go. A tied world record. 17 minutes and 15 seconds of intense gameplay later, it couldn't be determined who was faster. However, this record wouldn't remain tied for long. Chris Knight would soon blow everybody's run out of the water. On March 16th, 2013, he had a great run going down into Kraid's lair thanks in part to getting great missile luck. He then did a really quick Kraid fight, where he just got right up in Kraid's face and spammed missiles. And after an even faster climb out of Kraid's lair, where he used the platforms next to the blocks to jump up higher, and a really fast bridge skip where he froze the Rio in midair while jumping on top of it, he was way ahead going into Torian. But his biggest time save by far was the hallway in the Mother Brain room. Instead of the safe method of going beneath each platform and shooting anything that got near him, Knight got on top of the platforms and ran right up to each pillar to shoot it. He was at risk of getting hit more, but he played really beautifully here. He just kept charging forward endlessly, being careful to conserve his health, but he wasn't stopping for anything. He was getting to the end. After finishing the escape, Chris Knight had beaten Metroid in 15 minutes and 43 seconds. A minute and a half of a record that had stood for 7 years. People who saw this run just after it was posted all agreed that it was one of the greatest speedruns that they had ever seen. Getting the missile luck that he got, along with all of the other insane execution, was nearly impossible to replicate. If anyone wanted to beat this run, there's going to need to be some serious strategy changes. So, there's one important thing I haven't explained yet: the rules of a Metroid speedrun. Historically, the most common rule set for Metroid runs have included the following 2 rules. You can't do an up and A warp, and you can't do a death warp. An up and A warp is a strange feature that was built into Metroid and a few other NES games at the time, notably The Legend of Zelda. If you pause the game with one controller, then press up and A on the second controller, you'll be warped to the start of whatever area you're in. A death warp is similar. If you take a death, you get sent to the start of the area you're in as well. These both can save you multiple minutes. In Kraid's lair, for example, you normally need to climb all the way out of Kraid's lair to make your way into Torian. If you instead just either take a death right after defeating Kraid, or do the up and A trick, you will immediately get taken back to the elevator. So, since you cannot warp, the category is actually known as any % warpless. But up through 2013, there was one more rule that players abided by: no glitches. This is a pretty controversial topic. A lot of you out there watching probably hate glitches and would love to see them all banned from speedruns. This was the mentality of a lot of major speedrunning websites years in the past. One of those websites, where nearly everybody was submitting their Metroid speedruns, was Speed Demo's Archive. Since they banned most glitches for Metroid, people did their speedruns without glitches. That's why the runs I've talked about up to this point are all glitch-free. But as time went on, people just said, forget Speed Demo's Archive, we're gonna use glitches anyway. This is precisely what Chris Knight decided to do in 2014. And there was one glitch in particular he was about to use that would forever change the way people played Metroid. The door jump is a famous trick that can help you access different areas of the game quicker. It's performed by shooting a door open, then letting it close on top of you. Then, you press up and down repeatedly on the controller, and Samus will begin to move upward. You can either get further up the screen by going all the way up, or you can go below the screen by screen wrapping onto the bottom. The main reason why this was huge for speedruns is because now, there was no need to go out of your way to pick up bombs. At the start of the glitchless runs, You always want to pick up all of the items and health that you needed. One of those items was bombs, and you had to take about 2 minutes navigating to and from them. And the main reason players needed the bombs were to bomb the floor to get to new areas. Now, instead of doing that, as long as there was a door there, you could just door jump, and then screen wrap to the bottom. So, in November 2014, Chris Knight had a run with this new door jump route. He was streaming it live on his twitch.tv account, and there were splits in the upper right hand corner, but they weren't splits for his old world record run, and I'm not really sure what they're for, so just ignore them. While he did save a couple of minutes from not having to pick up the bombs, the door jumps themselves ate up a bit of that time. He also couldn't farm as efficiently without bombs, having to shoot enemies individually instead of grouping them together with bombs. You have to keep in mind, the last glitchless run that he did was literally insane, so he did start to bleed some time. His Kraid fight was slower, he didn't get amazing luck with his missile farming, his climb out of Kraid's lair was safer, he had to do a different version of bridge skip since he didn't have any bombs, and he hesitated a little more in the Mother Brain room. By the end of the escape, nearly all of the 2 minutes the door jump save was gone, but not all of it. He finished the run 17 seconds ahead of his world record, with the final time of 15:26. By early 2015, a new competitor had entered the scene, Controller Head. He developed a few new strategies, including a way to get this E-tank in one swift jump to the top. His Kraid fight was also very clean.
Holy god, I'm wrecking Craig right now. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, buddy.
He got a nice bridge skip, and as you can see from his splits in the corner of the screen, he was on a really good looking run heading into Torian. And after defeating Mother Brain, he knew he was on world record pace. The chat was hyped, he was hyped, and there was just one obstacle left: the escape.
Let's fucking go. This is definitely it. This is it. About fucking time. This is it. 15-15. Yeah, baby. That's it. About fucking time.
For 7 years, nobody was able to lower the Metroid any percent warpless world record. Between the combined efforts of Chris Knight and Controller Head, it had now been lowered 3 times in the past 2 years. But as quickly as it began, the category entered another period of relative inactivity. Controller Head's 15-15 stood on top throughout the remainder of 2015 and through 2016. And then, in early 2017, a new challenger came along. His username was Metroid McFly, and his personal best started off innocently enough, finishing off runs in the 16 to 17 minute range. But that March, he went all out. An ultimate grind to take the Metroid world record, a run that had remained unbeaten for 2 years.
Oh, guys, 1556, hell yeah. Hell yes. Yes. Woo! 1524, dude. That's what I'm talking about right there. Hell yeah. Alright guys, that's it. Sub 15.
$14.54. After half a dozen personal bests over the course of a month, Metroid McFly had brought the Metroid Any% Warpless world record under 15 minutes. He played the game so much that March that he was starting to get tired of the grind. He wanted some different challenge. Like I mentioned before, the route through the game that these players used, picking up items and fighting Kraid before heading into Torian, revolved extensively around missile luck. If missiles didn't randomly drop when you needed them to, then you were out of luck and would have to reset. McFly didn't want to wait for missiles anymore, so he began searching for new options. He would end up arriving at a tool-assisted speedrun of Metroid from 2008 made by a guy named Lord Tom. If you don't know what a tool-assisted speedrun is, I'll try to give a better description of it than in my previous videos. It's when somebody goes in an emulator in order to create a theoretically perfect speedrun. There's tools that they can take advantage of. Slow motion, save states, or advancing frame by frame, for example, that can all be used to create a series of extremely precise inputs all the way throughout the run. This particular tool-assisted speedrun showcased a pretty strange method of making it through the game. Lord Tom literally picked up nothing at the start of the game. Instead, he door jumped right into Kraid's lair, and arrived there less than a minute after beginning the game. He then defeated Kraid and made his way into Torian to progress with the rest of the game. Now, if a human could pull this route off, it would be huge. There would be no need to collect the first missile pack or the ice beam at the start of the run. To illustrate this, here's a large image of the map of Metroid. You spawn here. If you want to pick up the missile pack, you have to go all the way to here. Then, to pick up the ice beam, you'd have to go all the way to here. And then to make your way all the way back down to Kraid's lair, you'd have to follow this path way back. This whole process would take about 6 minutes of real time. So instead, with this route, named Kraid First, you would go straight to Kraid and defeat him without any items, then pick up the ice beam on your way back to Torian, since it was more or less on your way. But there were some severe problems. You see, you needed to door jump in just the right way at 2 different locations in order to get dropped right into Kraid's room. They both involved navigating off-screen in different rooms, wrapping from the ceiling to the floor, and were ridiculously precise. In fact, for years these were believed to be humanly impossible, but a guy named The Tycoon carefully developed methods to make the clips just barely possible in March 2017. I'll leave out the exact technical details, but the videos are in the description if you're interested. You also needed to defeat Kraid without the ice beam. You couldn't take very much damage and you couldn't freeze any of Kraid's shots, so you'd have to maneuver around everything Kraid threw at you, like this. It would take hours of practice for McFly to get decent at it, and many more to master it. And finally, when you were climbing out of Kraid's lair before getting the ice beam, there was a ripper you would normally have to freeze with the ice beam to jump off of to reach the sledge. You obviously couldn't do that since you didn't have the ice beam yet, so McFly's solution was to roll onto him, get damage boosted up, unmorph in midair, and then jump to the platform. He had a 60th of a second to time this to reach the platform. So, was doing all of this humanly possible? Nobody knew at first, but Metroid McFly proved all doubters wrong on April 29th, 2017.
God, man, it took way too much damage. We are in there, dude. Well, what do we got? 1422.
Parts of it were slow. The door jumps were still new to him, the Kraid fight took a while, and Torian wasn't the fastest, but he had something to work with. Now the question was, how far could he take this game? The very next day, he beat his own record by 35 seconds, largely thanks to doing the door jumps faster.
Yeah, alright. 1348, dude.
Then 2 days after that, he cleaned up his movement in Torian and beat the record by 34 more seconds.
Woo! Alright. Hell yeah, guys. 1314, dude.
A week later, he had a new strategy for Kraid. Taking more damage intentionally to give himself more opportunities to shoot Kraid instead of dodging shots. This was enough to cut the Kraid fight in half.
Whew.
Oh, and on that very same run, he lowered the record 23 more seconds.
talking about, dude. That's what I'm talking about.
The next day, he had an even faster Kraid fight due to taking even more intentional damage, while being careful to still have enough health to stay alive. Another new world record, by 28 seconds this time.
Dude! Woohoo!
2.5 weeks after that, he had yet another new Kraid strategy, morphing into a ball to control when he would take damage. Usually he did this to get hit from Kraid's bottom spike. World record by 13 seconds.
Ooh, 12-10.
Metroid McFly has lowered the record 2 more times since then. An 11:49 from June 2017 to get the first ever sub 12, and an 11:40 from July 2017.
Oh, come on, man. Oh, that's so close to a 39, man.
That 11:40 still stands as of today. He beat the world record more than a dozen times from March 2017 through July 2017. On the leaderboards, nobody's really close to him. Garrison is the only other person with a time under 15 minutes. And that is the history of the Metroid world record. From the early days of Scott Kessler and Spider Waffle to the crazy grinding of Metroid McFly, the Metroid world record has come a really long way. McFly has been in control of the record for nearly a year, and he looks pretty unstoppable. But as we all know, records always get beaten. Whether it be from Metroid McFly or from somebody else, somebody will surely be able to beat Metroid even faster in the future. Thanks for watching. Gonna throw in a quick plug for my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/summoningsalt. If you like watching games being beaten fast, you're gonna want to check it out. Thank you.